Wave after wave of warriors had set out to destroy the John a clan and the last of the Black Eyes in Gerdlegard's northern region. In the end, their courageous fighters had won, but the losses had been horrific. Afterwards, they had begun to demolish the élfar buildings, to tear down the palace mount, and to fill in the hole. The elf Ireheart and his wife Fire had overseen the works. Now, one sun cycle after the end of Lot Ionan, the élfar, the dragon Lohasbrand, his orcs, and the Cordrian, Gerdlegard was settling into peace. The human monarchs had been restored to power, and chaos had given way to the rule of law. Although there were still a few princelings and upstarts in the kingdom who needed seeing to, Riken considered establishing peace and prosperity. Together with his brother, he had been preparing for the planned abdication when Ireheart and Fire had invited them to Tir Essential, to come to the court. Riken had not been aware that the elves, so few in number, had already chosen a king, or that enough of them had arrived to constitute a court. "Let's go over and take a closer look at this marvel." The little group turned their horses to take the gentle slope of the broad highway. You could only guess how deep the crater had previously been if you knew the old stories. This was where the northern élfar had ruled from. By filling in the crater, the elves had now managed to turn the place into a circular dip in the landscape, a good mile wide. But in Riken's eyes, the real miracle was the flourishing woodland. The forest treetops formed a rich green, waving sea of foliage into which he and his companions plunged. They seemed to sink to an ocean floor as they rode between trees that were more than 100 paces tall. Riken was enchanted by the interplay of light and shade, the various hues of leaf, bark, and bud. The air smelled like honey, exotic spices, and incense. His senses were aroused and entranced. "I have never seen trees with blossom like this," said Tungdil, sounding suspicious. "Or ones that grow that fast." "I can't object. They hide the horror that lay beneath it all." Riken started to feel very positive about their coming visit to the elf court. He was sure he would return to Tabane with extremely advantageous agreements. Secretly, he was quite ready to make pacts with all 3 elf realms. It would put Tabane ahead of Goragar and Idaslain. It was true that a new era was being launched in Gerdlegard, but Riken did not trust the ruler of United Kingdom of Goragar Idaslain, Queen Malenia. She might be a powerful and determined leader, but he did not approve of her chosen lifestyle. What kind of a monarch sets up with an actor, of all things, and one known to flaunt an open dalliance with a maga at that? Riken did not think Malenia would attack him, but considered her moody and unpredictable. To have the elves on his side would make a good impression. His own people would be reassured, too. He wanted his country to be safe, that was all. The Tabane delegation made their way along the winding road flanked by the mighty tree trunks. The woodland was flooded with light. Moss and ferns covered the floor, but there was no dense undergrowth. From time to time, Riken noticed animals watching the riders. The wildlife sensed it had nothing to fear from these humans. "Over there on the right," said Tungdil. "Looks like the elves haven't been quite as thorough as we thought." Riken turned to catch sight of an imposing sculpture of unmistakably élfar origin. It was composed entirely of bones. It portrayed the upper body of a powerful warrior rising up to launch himself on enemies. Woodland creepers had almost covered the horrifying work of art, growing tight across the bone surface. "The ivy will soon pull it down," said Riken, shuddering. "The élfar are being eliminated, together with everything they created." The 5 riders reached a wide clearing containing a dozen or so stone-built houses and a colossal tree at its center.